All right, everyone. Welcome to the STOA. Today we have a fellow Torontonian joining us, Yanique Bird. Yanique is a communications professional here in Toronto, and she's a facilitator of Theory U. And we have a session today called Collective Coaching. And it's going to be an active session. So feel free to turn on your camera. And if you don't feel like participating today, then I think there maybe is a witnessing option, which Yanique will talk about in a moment. And how this session came about, we had an experiment, a non-recorded experiment at the STOA called Collective Inquiry. So basically having an inquiry with a group of people. And I wanted to design this thing, perhaps pour it into the wisdom gym. And it was a beautiful session. Some of you might have been there, but it had some hiccups. And then someone from that session said, like, yeah, Peter, that was good, but you should check out Yanique Bird stuff. You know, she was doing something during the pandemic, I think around some of the cruise of Rebel Wisdom. And they were calling coaching circles at the time. And so apparently what we did at Collective Inquiry had some map over to this coaching circles. So I'm super excited to experiment with this, and I'm going to hand over the keys to the STOA to Yanique in a moment, and she's going to kind of explain the protocols. The session will be recorded. I don't know if I'm going to post the whole thing, but if you don't want to be on YouTube at all, just indicate that, then we won't post the second portion. This will be more for Yanique as a record, but we will have a presentation that will be posted on the YouTube channel. And the session is allocated for 2 hours, but we might not fill up the whole time. So that being said, I will tag in Yanique and then hand over the keys. Welcome to the STOA.
Thank you so much, Peter, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you all for showing up for this, and I'm really excited to see what beautiful stuff we can do together. So I have a very short presentation that's just going to give you a bit of an introduction and a framing for what we'll be doing here today. It's going to last about 10 minutes, and then from there we'll go into the actual coaching process. So I'll share my screen and quickly walk through this presentation, and at the end we'll have further instructions about how everything's going to work. So today I'll be introducing you to a psychotechnology that we're calling collective coaching. It's my adaptation of Otto Scharmer Theory U's coaching circles, or case clinics as they're sometimes called. And this practice is a little bit similar to something like circling, where the process places a single individual at the center of each session, with the other participants playing the role of sort of cognitive mirrors for that centered individual. And my plan for the next 2 hours is to give you a brief introduction to some of the philosophy and the mechanics behind the process, and then to demonstrate the psychotechnology with a small group of volunteers, and then everyone else sort of playing the role of witness. So, as I mentioned, Theory U was developed by Otto Scharmer and his team at MIT, and I've been practicing this modality for the last 7 years, and I received my certification as a facilitator 2 years ago, around the same time that I started experimenting with the case clinic tool in a more, let's say, open manner. What drew me to Theory U initially was this focus on listening, reflecting, and tuning into the role that you play as an individual in a larger whole or a system. And it also provides ways of practicing sort of a gentle stewardship of systems rather than a top-down sort of leadership style. So this process allows us to connect to what Otto calls the highest future possibility, and working to bring that into being using a state or process of presencing, which is a term that many of you may be familiar with. It's a portmanteau of present and sensing. And Theory is essentially the philosophy and a set of tools for moving into and living within a cycle of presencing. And my favorite tool within this set is the coaching circle. And Theory is often described as sort of an open source set of tools and a philosophy. And in that spirit, I've taken the case clinic tool and adapted it for people who don't know a whole lot about, or actually you don't need to know anything about theory U to do it, and who don't even necessarily know each other, because the original intention of this tool is to work within a team where you have a common goal. That isn't necessary for the way that I've been practicing it. So this is the remix process that we'll be demonstrating to you today, and we're calling it collective coaching. So for the purposes of our time together today, because this is the STOA, I'm going to get into a little bit of the mechanics of this process, even though they're not totally necessary. And what I'm going to focus on is the levels of listening. Okay, so Theory U proposes that there are 4 levels of listening, from fairly shallow to very deep, and the collective coaching process encourages the development of deep listening and the ability to consciously and intentionally move between these levels. So the first level is called downloading, and this is where you're listening from a place of habit. This is the type of listening that can be thought of as sort of a mental procedural memory. Your filters and biases are in place, and you sort of know what's what already, and you're just going about your business applying what you already know. The second level is called factual, and this is when you approach a situation with sort of an open mind, and it's sometimes equated to like the conversational level of debate. So you're able to notice differences and discrepancies between what you already think and what is actually happening, or the reality that you're perceiving. The habitual patterns can be challenged and suspended, and in this mode, you're able to update your mental models of things based on new information. The third level is the empathetic or emotional listening. This is where you have an open heart, and the focus is on seeing through the eyes of another person. So there isn't a focus on data or propositional sort of knowledge. It's about connecting to an emotional experience. And finally, the deepest level is called generative listening. And this is where the will is open, which means that there's an openness to change and transformation at the level of identity. And you see and feel yourself as, you see and see the role that you're playing within a larger system. And this is where you connect to a future that wants to emerge, and you can start to, through that open will state, work to bring it into being. So if you think of each of these sort of access points as a gateway, there is, in this model, an internal voice that sort of guards the gateway that you must address in order to move through it into a deeper level of listening. And so to open the mind, we think of it as suspending your judgment. This is your inner know-it-all who like makes snap decisions about everything and everyone, and kind of knows everything and isn't really interested in new information. So once you're able to suspend that internal voice, you can enter an open mind state and listen factually. To open the heart, this is about redirecting cynicism. So this is the voice internally that sort of questions everybody's motives and truthfulness and trustworthiness. And if you're able to sort of move past that or redirect that voice in a different direction, then empathy can happen. And finally, to open the will, we let go of the voice of fear. And of course, this is the internal voice that always has a horrible story about what's going to happen if you do this, or if you think that, and is often, trying to protect you, as all these voices are, but not always the most productive when you're trying to get things done in the world. Okay, so that's listening. And so the intentions for this coaching process, if we're able to do all of these things, like if we're able to access all these different levels of listening, we become able to generate new ways of looking at a situation and to connect to some previously hidden or unacknowledged possibility in a situation. And this is what we're going to be intending to do today. So all participants Um, we want to approach and maintain an open mind and open heart state. And in particular, for the case giver or the centered individual, we want them to be able to approach an open will state in regards to their challenge or problem that they bring to the circle. And also for the case giver, it can illuminate blind spots by having all these other individuals act as sort of cognitive mirrors so they can see sort of a 360 view of their situation, whereas before maybe they were seeing just a slice. And we're all going to practice hearing and addressing our three internal voices just while we move through this process. So logistically, we're going to have 6 volunteers, and I will ask people to volunteer themselves in a bit. And the remaining attendees will act as witnesses. The role of witnesses is sort of a new one, so this is super experimental today. And witnesses will be sort of watching, observing as much as possible, trying to remain within the state and the sacred space that we're creating. And then at the end, there will be space for the witnesses to sort of share their own reflections and observations and any feedback that they had on observing the process. The case giver will be selected from the volunteers based on their willingness or eagerness to play that role today. And we'll flow through the process for about 70 minutes. And as I said, the witnesses will share impressions, etc. Towards the end. So this is the flow of the process. We'll open sacred space with a short meditation on the 3 vital connections. Then we will select a case giver and hear the case for about 20 minutes, selecting and hearing, total about 20 minutes. And then we have a reflective silence where we just kind of absorb the case, select, like, allow your mind to process what you've just heard and maybe make notes if you need to, and select what it is that's most salient that you want to share. And then in the mirroring section, this is where we'll be sharing what came up for you while you were listening to the case and also during the silence. And then we'll have a generative dialogue at the end where we continue to sort of share and reflect, especially on the case and what came up during the mirroring, and continue to help the case giver move towards that open will state that we talked about. And then we'll close the sacred space with expressions of gratitude, and then we'll hear from our witnesses. And that will be the end of the session. So with that said, I'm going to stop my screen share and we'll move into the actual process here. Maybe I'll pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions about all that.
And I'll just sort of say if you're called to participate, but you don't want to be on YouTube, just put that in the chat or let me know, and then I won't post the coaching portion, just the presentation.
Okay. So who feels called to participate?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Could you clarify what you meant, Peter, by posting on YouTube and feeling hesitant maybe to be on YouTube? I didn't quite get what you said.
Oh, so this is being recorded right now, and most stoa sessions get posted on YouTube. And so I was going to post this one, the presentation and the practice portion. But if you're called to be in the practice portion and you don't want that to be on YouTube, because it might be personal or whatever, then I won't post it. Just let me know in the chat.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay, so if you do feel called to participate in the circle, you could just raise your hand and we'll go. Okay, I see Ron. Thank you, Ron. Another Ron. 2 Rons. I see Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Sorry, to participate, does that mean you're going to be the case giver? Or does it mean you're going to could be a witness?
So we're picking 3 people to be either the case giver or a coach. And then once we have the 6 people, from the 6, we will select the case giver. So do you want to be an active participant? And if not, you'll be a witness.
Okay, so we'll all be a witness. Okay, that'll do me.
Yeah, so if you're not amongst the sixth, everyone's a witness. That's the idea. Yeah.
So Ed, was I correct in hearing that you wanted to be a witness rather than a participant?
Well, I don't mind, but yeah, I would choose if I had the choice. I'd go for the witness.
Okay, that's totally fine. Okay, any other participants? Okay, Johnny. Thanks, Johnny. Okay, I think that's everybody. So we have Ron, Johnny, Peter, and myself. Oh, and Kim. So that's 5 people. We have space for one more, or we could go proceed with 5. Okay, Daryl. Thanks, Daryl. Okay, we have our 6. Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with just a brief sacred space meditation. And so I'll invite you now to close your eyes or cast them downwards if you prefer. And witnesses, you can participate as well. And take a few deep cleansing breaths. And letting go of any tension that's in your body. Relax the shoulders. Roll the neck a little bit. And we're going to first attend to our connection downwards. So just feel into the sensation of your feet resting on the floor beneath you. And this is our connection to the earth, that being from which we draw all life. And just for a few cycles of breath, we'll send gratitude and appreciation for the connection that we share to the earth body. And when you're ready, you can bring your attention upwards to your chest in your heart center. This is where we are connected to the social field, so to everyone we know and even everyone we don't know, through our hearts. We're all part of a social body, and we'll just spend a few cycles of breath sending gratitude to these connections that we hold. And finally, bring your attention upwards once more to the crown of your head. This is where we feel our connection to the sky or to spirit or to all the unknown forces that animate our world. We may not know exactly what they are or exactly what our relationship is to them, but they exist and we give gratitude all the same. So we just spend a few cycles of breath sending loving gratitude into this connection. Okay, and just slowly bring your attention back to your screen and the connection we're sharing here today. So now we will select our case giver, from the 6 volunteers that we have. So how I normally do this is, if you want to close your eyes, you can or not. But everybody who is participating as anybody who's participating in the circle, think of a number between 1 to 10 that represents your eagerness to be the case giver for today's session. So 1 being, I really do not want to be the case giver, get me out of here. And 10 being, I would love to be the case giver. I have something burning inside me that I just really would like to have presence by the circle. And so I'm going to count to 3, and on 3, you can hold up your hand indicating your willingness to be the case giver for today's session. Okay, everybody's got a number. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I see a 6 from Ron. Oh, that's a 7. Well, that's pretty high. Okay, Ron has it. Okay, I'm going to share a few instructions about what goes into giving a case. Actually, maybe I should have done this before. But first, you start with an intention statement, and I'm going to put these into the chat as well so that everybody can see. So the case needs to be a current situation. So it can't be something that happened in the past. So what key challenge or question are you up against? It has to be a present challenge that is current and concrete, so not like a math problem that you're trying to solve. The case giver needs to be a key player in the case, so it has to be a situation where you have influence, and the participants in the case clinic will act as peers, so there's no hierarchical relationship among us, and we're not giving advice. Instead, the object here is to listen deeply as possible, and then we'll have rules for exactly how we go about sharing in the next portion. So there are a few questions for the case giver to sort of talk generally around. You don't have to answer them in sequence. So what is the key challenge or question that you're up against? Who are your stakeholders? So who else is involved in the situation and how might they view the situation? What future are you trying to create out of this situation or challenge? And what is your learning edge? So what might you need to let go of and what might you need to learn? And where do you need help or input? And for this section, the case giver is going to speak for the next 15 minutes uninterrupted, and the coaches will have a chance to listen as deeply and intently as possible, and then we'll have a section of sharing. So Ron, whenever you're ready, you've got 15 minutes to elucidate your case, and I'll start the timer and let you know when 15 minutes is up.
All right. So the case that came to my mind is actually, I think, similar to what we're doing here. What I do for a living, I do organizational development. The setting is a community health center, and a big portion of what I do involves coaching and leadership development. And I'm in a really good situation in terms of support from the leadership, that there's a dedicated time set aside for leadership for the entire management level of the organization. And so that we've got 2.5 hours first Wednesday of every month set aside for this large gathering of about 40 people, gathering on Zoom. In 2021, I did a year-long, what I'll call linear curriculum, kind of laid a foundation for leadership at this organization. And what we've been doing this year is kind of more topically, timely reviewing, but layering in new content. So this is really a creative question and creative puzzle for me. I could keep doing that, but I want to play with some different options about what to do with this space. And there's been an idea that I've been playing with for a while, but don't really know how I would pull it off, which is to explore how could I create more peer coaching within the organization. I myself, as I said, I am a coach, and I do a lot of coaching with these leaders. In addition to these gatherings, I do individual coaching. And that could be very powerful, but it's not that scalable. And what would it be like to create a culture of peer coaching? And some of the foundation that I've laid for this is that in the leadership development that we're doing, a lot of it is based in this idea of the leader as coach. So teaching people some basic coaching skills. So they're already familiar with this. We do have a coaching ritual that we do at the beginning of each gathering, where we do the breakout rooms and everybody gets 10 minutes of coaching. So I've laid some of the foundation for this, and I'm just trying to think through and figure out how to, I mean, part of it is logistical. Part of it is kind of managing the trade-offs between the benefits that we get from, like the culture building benefits we get from having this really great reflective time as a whole management group together, but wanting to also have space, like a lot of space for people to create peer coaching relationships, which I believe will help people, one, become better coaches, two, develop much greater practical judgment just as managers. So that's kind of the puzzle. I don't know that I have 15 minutes worth of details. I think I've only been talking for about 5. I wasn't watching the clock. Is that enough to start with, or are more details needed?
We could start with that if you really feel like there isn't anything else. But one question that I would have, just based on the original, is how are the other people in the situation likely to see this challenge? Like, do you feel like they have preferences already, or no?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say the others aren't right now clamoring for change. Let's put it that way. They appreciate that. I mean, this is kind of rare for an organization. I mean, this is, if you think about it, this is expensive. This is an investment to take, and it's a health clinic. So a number of these people are actual providers. And so to pull people away from patient care, this is a real investment in the organization, and people see that and appreciate that. So one option is to continue to do things as we've been doing them. People seem to be benefiting. But it's really, I mean, at least I view it this way, it's my job to be thinking about what else, how could we improve? So part of this is simply coming from me kind of thinking, what could we create here that would go beyond what we already have? I do get feedback from people regularly that they appreciate and benefit from and have loved what I've created here, especially the breakout time, because that's allowed for connections across the organization that weren't happening before. Again, this is healthcare, so we've got behavioral health people, we've got medical providers, dental, pharmacy. So people are in their different, you can call them professional silos when they're doing their work, and so this is the one space that kind of brings them all together. And so it's had this kind of relationship building aspect to it, and people see that benefit. So I think people would like more time together that's less structured. And I've tested this idea with a few people and have gotten that kind of feedback that, yes, we like that there's new content, But sometimes is there always going to be more content? Like how much, you know, additionally, you know, there's the question of what do we do with new hires? So as people come into the management group, I would say that's another set of stakeholders where they weren't there for the first year. And so there's this kind of catching up as they're getting content, getting the, I keep calling it content, the leadership practices that we've been working on, not getting them in a linear fashion, but kind of getting them layered throughout the year, applied to different timely situations. So from their standpoint, it could be beneficial for them to have more time, kind of one-on-one time with a peer to help catch up, to help get oriented. So I guess those would be the stakeholders, how they might view the situation. My intention, the future I'm trying to create is, I mean, this is kind of my mission is to create deliberately developmental organizations or organizations with growth cultures where the organization sees that, you know, our learning, our growth is required to create a healthy organization. When we do this, we create better outcomes for one another, better experiences with one another, and deliver better for the people that we serve. And so that's my intention, is just to serve this particular segment of the organization, you know, more creatively in a more scalable way, and really create a culture that will, a growth culture that won't be dependent on me long term and will outlast me. So I think there's a legacy aspect of this as well, but I don't expect I'll work here forever. The learning edge, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to learn? I'm not sure. Again, it's, as I described this is a creative puzzle for me. I'm just trying to figure that out. What could it look like? And where do I need input or help? I guess just thinking it through, what am I missing? Any ideas, maybe things people have experienced in other organizations? Yeah, any blind spots? Yeah, and I think that's all I got.
Okay. So we have another almost 6 minutes left. So do any of the coaches have clarifying questions for Ron at this point? Just questions to help you get a better feel for the case. Ron W.
Thanks. This could be on my own listening, Ron, but I'm wondering, could you state kind of like the key challenge in one sentence or phrase, or if it's possible? I mean, maybe it's not reducible to that if you had to formulate the best question.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that will help. What I want is to create a space, a sustainable space for growth and development for this management group at this community health center. And I'm playing with ideas about how to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I was still wondering if there's a challenge, something that's a question that incorporates the challenge you're facing.
Yeah, the challenge is around this particular idea that I have around peer coaching as a method to do that. I'm not sure how I would do that. And I actually didn't say this before. So with this, the logistical constraint I'm working within, it's great that we have this time, but it's also this set of time. So if I created this peer coaching space, it would still be somehow using this time, the first Wednesday of the month. And so how could I create something that wouldn't need to be facilitated by me? Because I could not possibly, however I broke up the groups, I could not possibly be facilitating that within that time frame for all those people if I'm helping people pair up or get into small groups. So how could I really move this group, which is always facilitated by me, to become unfacilitated or self-facilitated?
Kim has a question, and then Peter, and we have 3 minutes left.
Yeah, this is really, it's formulating, and I just have this sense that you might have an image of what this looks like, or some aspects of it that you can actually visualize and name. So that's my question. Is there something that's sort of here, but you haven't really brought it in and put it right in the center, what it looks like?
Yeah. The image I have is to have an organization where people always feel like they can phone a buddy. That when, outside of what we're doing here is what this is really for and where this really matters. So that people feel like they're never alone in facing challenges, that there's always somebody that they can reach out to who will help them, as I like to say, get from stuck to unstuck, and just get moving on resolving whatever is in front of them. So yeah, phone a buddy, I would say that's my image that I'm kind of carrying as I play with this idea. Thank you.
And my question is just a super quick clarification. I might have missed some of it as I was distracted, but just what's the summary of your current activity? Like you're meeting the first Wednesday of the month with 40 people. Like maybe you can just kind of flesh that out a bit. And the other question I'll take on there is that this current or peer coaching thing, is there any kind of pressure or like external mandate for you to do something new? Or is this just a creative vision?
Yeah, this is a creative vision. There's no external mandate. And the current setup is this space is set aside, but because of the nature of the work being a health center and the hours it's open, it's like this is the only space that's going to be set aside. So I don't have the flexibility to say, this group on Monday, this group on Tuesday. So it's like I'm working within a time constraint. And right now, what we've established is everybody gathers the first Wednesday of the month for 2.5 hours. And so I've facilitated the whole group in collective learning. And so could I play with, maybe it's not every month, but could I use that time at times to do something different that's not everybody all at once, but it gives more of this peer coaching.
Okay, thank you, Ron. That's all the time we've got for hearing the case. And so our next section will be stillness. And this is where coaches, you will be reflecting on what you've just heard from Ron, paying special attention to any images, metaphors, feelings, or gestures that arise for you while you were listening to the case or that come up for you while you're reflecting on it. So really try to listen in with your heart to what you were hearing. And we'll have 3 minutes of stillness, and I'll sound a chime softer this time when that time is up. Okay, that's it for silence. And now we will have our reflections from the coaches. So the section is mirroring. And as it suggests, you're sort of acting as a mirror for what you've heard. And in particular, we are inviting you to share any images or metaphors, feelings or gestures that came up for you during the silence or while listening to the case. And at the end of this section, the case giver will reflect back on what was resonant from what he heard in the coaches. So I'll go first as sort of example, and then we'll start our 10 minutes. So as I think this image kind of crystallized for me during the silence, but it started while I was listening to Ron speak. And I was just imagining this huge room with these 40 people, as you said. And during your sort of breakout sessions, there's little fires that are starting in these smaller groups. And you're kind of running from table to table, trying to fan these flames to keep them going. But while you're fanning one flame, the others are kind of going out. And there's a bit of a, you're very busy, you're very active, kind of frenetically trying to keep these little fires going in between these sessions. So that's an image that came up for me. And then the feeling was, I felt a lot of like warmth, like, like you really care and you really love what it is that you're doing and you're looking for a way to help it like grow and sustain. So it had the flavor of kind of like a, like a gardener, somebody tending their garden very lovingly. And yeah, now I'll start our timer for 10 minutes and we'll hear any similar reflections from other coaches or wildly divergent reflections from coaches. And you can feel free to unmute and share as something comes alive for you.
I can start. I was like, I think I was noticing during while I listened to you that you kind of, I didn't catch you, like you somehow disappeared for me while I was listening. So I guess I wondered, like, what is it in it for you? Like maybe some sort of maybe a sense of care for you as the leader or as the that's one thing. Another thing, I didn't like the sense of the group you are working with was there, but more was who benefit from it. So the users of your services, I was very much with listening to you. And I got a sense that the benefit for those are really, really valuable. And then secondly, the benefit for the team is also beneficial. And something about like the foot don't know the hand kind of, but when the body comes together, you kind of can figure out what this is all about. And in the silence, I got this like a center, spokes, maybe a wheel. And then more silence, it kind of turned into this wheel you have in the river, like going, the river is kind of giving energy to the wheel. So the wheel more or less goes by itself in the stream. And I don't know what that means, but it came very strongly.
Thanks, Johnny.
I can go. Yeah, so there was like two movements I felt. Like movement number one was just like the sense of excitement, and movement number two was contraction. And so for the first movement, the excitement, I just sort of like felt like it's like feeling into the opportunity of this thing and how fucking cool that just like, oh shit, pure like coaching is just spreading in this place, and it's like a revolution. And the imagery is like, you know, it's the gardens blossoming, like the sun is out, you're by the sea, it's so expansive. So that's sort of like the first movement. And then the second movement is like contraction. And when I asked about like the external pressure, I was wondering what the internal pressure is going on. If there is internal pressure, and the imagery I got is like kind of like just boring office space. There's a clock, sweaty armpits, like panic breathing, and it just has like a certain energy to it. Yeah, so those two kind of like streams, movements, energetically felt kind of present in my body at various different times when you're speaking. So I'll pause there.
I can jump in. It was a little blurry for me, but feeling wise, there was a feeling of peace and warmth similar to what Yanique said. And there was towards the end, nature came up. So the idea of kind of the effortlessness of nature, but things organically happening and growing, but still with, you know, Mother Nature occasionally coming in with disruptions. And one last thing was something like, oh, and silence. Silence was a big thing that just kept coming up, so, similar to the piece. And then finally, almost like a martial artist or like a keto, working skillfully with resistance, like resistance coming up, but it being dealt with in an Aikido kind of way of going with it, not avoiding resistance and not over, you know, becoming overbearing against it. So those are my main takeaways.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks, Peter.
Jump in. What? Yes. Like what came to me is the thought, more less the image, but the thought of that, like a mother bird, and this nest, and you're cultivating these possibilities, but they're unknown yet. And then at some point you just, and they fly away. And the sense was that you have this deep, like something deep within you that you so know is possible, this dream, or this, and not the tangible dream of what can happen here, but something you want to give. Like you know it already within yourself, what this can do. And not just for this team or the people there, but for the patients, you know, and then beyond. So there's this sense of, oh my God, there is something here that can be birthed. And here's the image. I got to stand up. Let's see if I can do this. The image was something like, and some seriousness, and then opening, and then ultimately these little poplets, maybe the little bird, and then and me stepping back. That's what I had.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. It's a little choppy, but I think we caught most of it. And thanks for sharing those gestures. Gestures are always fascinating to me. Daryl, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I sense that this is a model for how a lot of us might want to be offering and interacting in the world. And there's a way that I would hope that you would let your clients know, your patients know, that this was a part of your community, and even encourage it to happen amongst them, kind of a eating your own dog food kind of thing, except sort of in reverse. But that, and that there's a way that this, yeah, becomes a holistic form of healthcare, and then maybe turns into some way that it's encouraged or coached to happen for patients in the same way that you're already doing it in your own community. And it sounds like you're already doing some stuff that might fit with that even before you get to this point. Yeah, and I had some other questions later, but maybe there's room for that. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have any other feelings, gestures, or images that they'd like to share? We have another minute and a half for mirroring. Okay, if not, then Ron, having heard the coaches and their feedback, what would you say was most resonant for you?
One thing that stands out is, and as I think about how I presented this, I left in the background a lot of my own joy and wonder around what I'm doing. And I just liked how a number of you kind of asked for it or pointed it out, that what's there for me in the background driving this is coming from somewhere. So it's a creative puzzle, yes, and also it's deeply connected to a desire and a joy. I liked the very image-based way a number of you kind of described this. You know, the mother bird, the fanning the fires, the wheel in the river. So just the images, I'll definitely carry that with me. Yeah, the wheel in the river, and then I think it was Ron talked about the effortlessness of nature. I think those kind of stand out. Is that when I said sustainable, you know, creating culture, that kind of gets at what I want to create, because I do feel like I'm, as you said first, you know, I'm like fanning the fires like that. I'm like the connective tissue right now, and I want to be able to step away, disappear. You know, I want the magic to be in the group. So that's what comes up for me as I reflect on what you've shared. Thank you all.
And thank you. Okay, so that concludes mirroring, and we're going to move now into our generative dialogue. So we're going to continue the conversation, starting with the case giver. We will reflect on the remarks that were made by Ron and move into a generative dialogue about how these observations can offer new perspectives to the case and situation. So we're continuing to support him into moving into an open will state as regards this case. And we're just going with the flow of the dialogue here. There's no pressure to fix the problem or to give solutions. And again, we're going to refrain from giving advice about how Ron should act. Instead, we're going to build on each other's ideas, and we can continue to share any further images or gestures or feelings that arise as this dialogue occurs. So I know Ron has just shared, so if anybody has responses to what he just said, we can start with them. And we've got 20 minutes.
I can start to go first again. Like listening to the other coaches and also to you, Ron, and looking at my wheel, like now the wheel kind of turned into a dough, like a bread that is, you know, getting ready to be put into the fire. And I was thinking about like and your wish, your almost like your vision to be out of the picture, but leaving like a legacy almost. And I was just spinning around like the water, like the emotion, what is driving the wheel? Like, is there some sort of protocol that you could make? Like, is there because we having the energy, the fire in the dough, the fire in the river to fuel the process. So you can dip your toe into it and be affected. And also, I really appreciate, it was good to hear that you came into the picture. And it also kind of brought up several questions about, why do you have to be out of the picture? Who are you when you are in the picture? Things like that.
Thanks, Johnny. I had a thought, and I guess it's related to Peter's mirroring about the second movement of your case, which was the restrictive part, or like the contraction. And as you were giving the case, Ron, you mentioned that people were sort of giving you positive feedback about how this is going and their appreciation for it. But there was this sort of limitation on how far you felt you could go based on the time that's allotted. And I guess I'm wondering, like, is besides the time frame, is there something else that's making you feel restricted in like how you would go about continuing to build these connections between people? Because I feel like, yeah.
Are we now in dialogue where I contribute as well in answering?
Yeah, we're now in dialogue, so
yeah, okay. Yeah. One of my contractions, I guess you would call it, is, I mean, these people are doing such amazing work. I mean, think about being in healthcare during the pandemic. And it's a community health center, so we serve the people that wouldn't get it otherwise. And I mean, like 18% of our patient population is unhoused. And so like these people are doing amazing, amazing things. And, you know, one, I want to provide something that's really going to practically benefit them, that, you know, the time that the organization is investing in them is really worth it. And two, I am very cautious and wary about asking too much. So when there's, you know, learning to be had, trying to make it all happen within that time. I don't want people to have to do a lot of reading. I mean, there's a lots of value in things like, you know, the flipped classroom idea of having people come in prepared, and then, but I'm just really hesitant to create anything that feels like extra work. You know, I want this to be a place of respite and rejuvenation. And so that's both the excitement, but it's also like the constriction side is, not wanting to, I guess I'm just restating myself, not wanting to be creating extra work for them.
Yeah, this kind of brings up what I was thinking. In fact, what everyone has shared and what you shared, because of your, and I heard the emphasis on being out of the picture, letting things operate on their own, kind of loose structure. You just talked about not wanting to put too much burden on them. I just kind of have a general wondering about, you know, looking at it as a polarity. How do you view your own autonomy and your own power and exercise of power, or whatever you would use in the situation, you know, in a skillful way, or whether there's maybe a reticence because of not wanting to put that burden on others, and kind of what might be a middle way of your exercising your own autonomy and discretion and power, or whatever. I know that's not always the best word, just comes to mind.
Yeah. This isn't exactly answering that, but what comes up for me with that is, you know, my mentioning that, you know, how I could step away, how it could just run on its own. Part of where this is coming from is a previous experience where, you know, I created some great leadership development work, was at this other organization for 6 years. I stepped away. I could still see what's there, and it's like nothing continued. And so part of this, it's not that an aversion to exercising my autonomy and power in the situation. It's it really is empowerment. Like, how can I empower like the, you know, the protocol to fuel the process, as I think Johnny put it. So that's what I want to use my autonomy for, is to create the empowerment that will outlast whatever the initial effort is in setting it up.
There's something coming up. I'll do 2 shares, and I think they're related. And so going back to that kind of excitement thread, I just feel this sort of like energetic kind of movement channeling through you, the sense of aliveness of that's related to this attractor of peer coaching. And then I can feel the boundary that you're allowed to play in, you know, in a certain kind of like with certain people in a certain kind of work organization with a certain time on a Wednesday. And so it's like, there's this tremendous energy channeling through you. And then there's this container that just kind of like, and then when I feel to that, like what I want to do like the meta move and go above the container, and like, what's the higher order, like aim here? Like, and then I'm just projecting my own kind of like excitement, where it's like, yeah, let's fucking emancipate coaching, like the skill set of coaching to the world. Let's give the coaching skill stack to everyone. So you can, like, my brother can be a coach, my coworker, my lover. And that's really excites me. So and I'm curious if what comes to life for you, like if that perspective shift opens up, oh, maybe in this container, some things can be met related to that kind of more higher order goal. And then outside of the container, there's like calling for me. And then the other thing, I think it's related, is I remember at Lululemon, they have these like little rituals. They're kind of like coaching rituals, where before they go to a meeting, it's just like people just do check-ins just to kind of say what's like kind of like on their chest and everything, so they can kind of clear it, and everyone kind of level sets where everyone's at. And then they can ground themselves with the intention of it. And yeah, something about like coaching rituals related to emancipating the coaching skill stack is coming up. And yeah, so I have no question, just a share, and if anything comes up for you.
Yeah, I mean, the phone a butt, I mean, you completely connected to the phone a buddy kind of image, and what you're building on that with what you just shared is like this. I had mentioned, like, currently we start every session with a warm-up ritual. Everyone goes into breakout rooms for coaching one another. So there's already that as a ritual. And now I'm wondering, how do I get that ritual out of this? How do they do that ritual like regularly, not just once a month? And thank you for saying, let's emancipate coaching. That is perfect. Yeah.
I'd love to dive in on that, because I was similarly thinking, and again, it could very well be projection, but that sense of, you know, there's something here that for you to give, and that connection to that, what is wanted, is bigger than you. So what if it is about coaching? What if it is about healthcare? What if it is about community health centers? What if it is about these people's interrelationship writ large? There's something that's like, as Peter said, staying connected to that aliveness, whatever that drive is, and being wary, perhaps, maybe I'm giving advice. I want to say it anyway, and you can ignore it, of getting too constricted by the logistics or the constraints, just that aliveness is key. And the other thing that came up is what do they want? What do they think is possible? Or what is driving them? Like, have you had these interactions with them, or even just a few of them, and engaging some of them with your, with your dream, and starting this rolling from within. It's not starting, it's already started, but rolling from within. Perhaps a few that are particularly excited or something.
I want to name something that I think has been a little bit unspoken in a number of other people's sharings. And Ron, when you spoke about not wanting to take anything else from these people or not wanting to impose anything on them, it's sort of like, how can you flip that and approach this with the spirit of, I'm giving them something. I'm not taking anything. I'm not asking for anything. It's everything I'm doing is in the spirit of giving or gifting to them. And then that might be a helpful shift in perspective or like approach.
And just quickly on that is, you may know, but you may not know, are they just craving for more? It's like they don't care if it takes extra time or work. They love this. I don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah. So, and then, to that end, like, I would want to know how much of this is already happening informally. Is there a survey, and maybe it doesn't need to be done, or maybe just a few people need it?
Yeah, that's cool. Like, what's the current unspoken culture of coaching that's already in play, and then how to become more sophisticated with what's already there. I really like that framing. And then something Yanique said. I was just on a call with someone, a coaching call, a philosophical coaching call, and then there was this tension between having this big grand idea to implement it and then just deliver the painfully small gift. And I just love that framing, the painfully small gift.
Yeah, since this idea of a higher order or something larger wanting to happen through you came up, I'm just kind of wondering how you go about connecting with that, as opposed to maybe figuring this out or working on it as a problem, kind of just like we did silence. What are your ways of maybe even surprising or not obvious, where you're able to connect with that larger something that is wanting to happen?
One thing that is kind of coming up for me is, and this is kind of how I tend to do things, is I get an idea. I have lots of ideas, more than I could ever do. So I'd like, once I get more excited about, test them with a few people who I know like engaging with ideas. I feel like I just want to start talking this idea up with a lot more people. And yeah, there's like this feeling like, could I create kind of a buzz around this, surface whatever I liked, what was said about what's the current unspoken culture of coaching, like kind of get people to notice what's already happening. Because from my perspective, I can see it, and I'm not sure everybody sees how much the culture has changed in the last year and a half. from what we've been doing. So yeah, a lot of energy around that.
I like that. Okay, so we went definitely more than 20 minutes in that dialogue, but I feel like it was being fruitful, so let it run. We're now going to close, so we'll take a final remark from each of the coaches and then a final remark from Ron, our case giver, and any expressions of gratitude people feel called to share, and then we will hear from our witnesses. So who would like to go first? Any final shares?
I can again go first.
Thank you for your willingness to go first.
Thank you. So I'm just coming back to my drawing and to your last reflection, Ron. Like I think also in the beginning, like the center with the spokes and the circle, open or not. So, and I was thinking, what about finding some in the environment and together kind of document the changes, like grounding and making sort of foundation, and then ask, and what now? Like what more can we bring? What more can we do? Something like that. This is what we got already. It's good, isn't it? And what more? Something like that.
Thanks, Johnny. Who's next? Final remarks.
Just
Kim?
one thought that you may already have, but is where is your support for continuing to engage with this idea? Do you have others around you to bounce things off and feed you and do this?
Yeah, the only thing coming up as a final thing is just maybe to enjoy the not knowing or not rushing to, again, figure this out and hang out in not knowing for a while and maybe luxuriate in it and find new ways of connecting to your own wisdom or higher wisdom. And I really like Kim's thing is, what is your support system, including someone who can, you know, even challenge you in a good way, a useful way.
Do thoughts come up? It's like I'm wondering if there's a kind of a framework or a concept out there that currently exists, like you know, like learning culture or learning organization in OD. Like, is there something like that about peer coaching in an organization that is framing that will help not only yourself but kind of people that you're talking to with? And the other thought was like, I don't know what the right metaphor here is. Like, is it like either being a trickster or like guerrilla warfare, or like, is there a way to like move towards this direction unannounced, like not even announce it? Like, could you do it secretly and artfully? So yeah, those are the two thoughts.
Yeah, Peter's first comment was what I wanted to say. Is there a developmental model that you can share with the peers so they kind of know what they're doing and guide them on the way and make sure that they're not just chit-chatting, or which is not necessarily a bad thing, but like, so there's juice to it and they're excited to take the next steps.
Okay, thank you, coaches, for all those lovely remarks. And Ron, any final remarks from you, and how was the process overall? Do you feel like it was helpful?
Yeah. So I'm glad I volunteered as a coach and a facilitator. I'm always glad when someone volunteers when I'm hosting something. And I love trying out processes like this. I'm familiar with Theory U. I've used similar ways of facilitating, like from liberating structures and things like that. And I always find anytime you just open up a space like this, even if it's, I mean, there's really practical logistical things I have to figure out, but like there's the energetic stuff, and that's what I feel like I got today, was kind of reconnecting to that, and just having the space to let that kind of grow a little bit. So I appreciate it. This was really, really wonderful. I was excited when I saw it announced, and yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Ron, for volunteering and for sharing your case with us and being open and vulnerable. This is kind of a hot seat to sit in. So I appreciate you taking it. And I appreciate all the coaches as well, you know, showing up and being courageous and also sharing what's going on in your mind openly and honestly. And yeah, just thank you all. And thank you for the witnesses for hanging out. So we're going to open up the session now. Consider the circle closed. And yeah, I'd like to hear from people who were hanging out, watching everything. What were their impressions? Do you have any thoughts on the process overall, or even on the case itself?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone said this, but what really struck me was I was watching this example of collective coaching, and I just wondered to what degree that related to or could be mirrored in Ron's 2.5 hours. I think I made myself clear there. It's just that I don't think anyone spoke about that.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught that exactly.
Okay. It was like in the 2.5 hours that Ron does once a month with 40 people, it could be a collective coaching thing could happen at some point in that thing where you got one case giver and 6, and everyone else is watching. That's all I was saying. Is that clear now?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah, that's certainly a possibility.
Maybe I can just comment on the experience of being a witness.
Yeah.
When I saw this event, it looked very interesting. And Yanique, when you were inviting us to participate in the different roles, I didn't really feel like I was in a mental place where maybe I could access those different depths and really participate fully. But I was still curious. So as a witness, it was really wonderful to hear on sharing, also all the coaches showing up at those different levels. It actually kind of helped open me up a little bit in ways that I didn't feel available. So as a witness, I feel like I really was gifted everyone's presence as everyone who participated. So without feeling the pressure that, you know, maybe I'm not available to really show up. So it was a real gift, I think, to me as a witness to be able to witness it.
Thank you, Mark. As I said, the witness role is a new one, so it's very interesting to hear that perspective and like how it is to just kind of be watching this process unfold. See Samani saying I needed a better articulation of what a case might look like before volunteering to participate, and that's good feedback. Maybe next time I will, if there's a next time, I will describe what the case is and then ask for a volunteer. So there's another question. Would it make a difference if people were able to volunteer themselves as coaches after the case has been described? Traditionally, like we select the people first, and then once the case is presented, then it's closed. When I was running this practice, like on a weekly basis, I would actually lock the room after everybody was in and the roles were selected, because it can be quite disruptive to have people kind of bounce in after the fact. So It's just how I've been doing it, but certainly open to experimenting. Any other witnesses would like to share something?
Hi, I'm just gonna stay off camera. Being a witness was a very interesting experience holding the space. And if it's okay, a few things came up for me. If it's okay to share those with Ron,
Yeah.
and I'll do it quickly. Just the peer-to-peer support group, the coaching. I mean, you could take that word out, and what comes to mind for me is like the 12 step, and you could, which is peer-to-peer support, and you could of course revise it and to a bespoke to your organization. And then just lastly, just not a binary situation. So your people could opt in or out. And my feeling is it would be so successful and the word would spread that probably you would get a lot of opt in. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Well, if there's nothing else, I think that would be our session for today, and I'll turn back over to Peter to close us out.
Awesome. Yeah, I quite enjoyed the session, and I love encountering new kind of techniques, and this is definitely one I think that deserves a repeat. So thank you, Yanique, for coming to the STOA and presenting this. Is there anything that you'd like to link people to, either here or watching on YouTube?
Not in particular, but if you would like to reach out to me for any reason, I'll just leave my email. I'm not really big on the publishing stuff, which I should probably get better at. Maybe I should do some coaching. So my email is in the chat, and if anybody has anything that they would like to share or questions, or you just want to connect for any reason, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. And we'll have a next session coming up at the STOA. Well, we have a session on their wisdom gyms. We want to check that out. But we have a session called meta productivity, like how to be philosophical and ask the deep questions and still get shit done. That's what Daniel Kazanjian is answering every Sunday for the month. So you can check that out on thestoa.ca. So that being said, Yanique, everyone, thank you so much for coming to the STOA today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Yanique. It was great.